Good afternoon. I'm so grateful that we could gather together virtually to talk a little bit on this Maundy Thursday. The Lenten Luncheon series at Brunswick First United Methodist has always been near and dear to my spiritual formation as a child that grew up in our congregation. And I can remember before I was in school running around at the lunches with my mom when she was helping prepare. And so I'm just so grateful for the legacy that we have in these lunches. And I hope that today, in this space and in this form, you'll be able to find a little nugget that will draw you closer to Christ during this journey. And boy, would we have never anticipated that we would be here 40 days into our Lenten journey together. And the world has changed so much and so quickly. And we are in such uncertain times. And I think that for me, personally speaking, I can relate most to the disciples during their time with Jesus on earth during this season because everything was changing around them. They had become so comfortable being in his presence and so fortunate to have him as a rabbi and friend and as the Christ, and then all of that was about to change. And so I'm going to read to you a very familiar story of the Last Supper tonight or this afternoon, but I invite you to center and to get comfortable as you hear these words, and maybe something new will pop out to you since we're in this very different season this year during Lent. And so hear these words from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, verses 17 through 30. On the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where do you want us to make the preparation for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they became greatly distressed and began to say to him, one after another, "Surely not I, Lord." He answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." He replied, "You have said so." While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it, gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat. This is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will never again drink of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. A theme that has really resonated with me over these past couple of years in my spiritual journey is the word covenant. And here in Matthew, we hear this word, covenant, from the very lips of Jesus. And covenant is such a loaded, rich word. And Jesus uses this word to mean so much because here he is playing into the story of God, which is our very story. And he's using this word covenant to reach back to the very beginning of the story of the people of God. And in your time that you have been given, we talked last week about the gift of time, I invite you to reread Exodus 24 this afternoon or this evening and to see how rich this covenant theme is with sacrifice and atonement, and how we see this in the life of Moses in Exodus and how at this very moment, we're seeing in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus giving himself the very sacrificial and very rich imagery of being one that will atone for the sins of all of humanity. And so covenant is just such a neat word as well, because covenant is an agreement between two parties. It's not a word that stands alone. It's something to be engaged in with and together. And so there's a both and to the word covenant, and I love that because in being with his disciples, Jesus is saying, I'm inviting you into deeper relationship with myself and my Father and the Holy Spirit. But in doing that, I also expect obedience from you, and that you will take part in this great dance that I share with the Trinity. And so I love the word covenant that Jesus uses here too, because it shows that we're being called to also be in relationship and to be obedient to all the many commands that God has put before his people and that Jesus has brought to life during his earthly ministry. So while it's so heavy to accomplish and such a steep order, it is made possible through the Holy Spirit, which dwells with you and with me each and every day, and that we're constantly being transformed to be better image bearers of God and to bring love and justice to the world. And so right now, that loving justice can be just waving to your neighbor from across the street, since we're in these shelter-in-place orders. And so maybe we won't have the big cross this Sunday like we're used to having, or the cute lily dresses and the fun ties, but we do have this covenant promise of eternity. And we can still smile and be joyful because we know the story's end, and we know that God's kingdom is here and now. And so go in peace and read Exodus and learn more about what Jesus is saying when he talks about covenant during this very special time he shares with his disciples on Maundy Thursday. So thank you for tuning in, and if you need anything at all, please reach out.